If there's one thing I've learned, it's that getting outside is always worth it, no matter the weather. Welcome to Humans Outside, where we're building a life around spending time in nature while learning from fascinating outdoor-minded guests. I'm Amy Bouchatz, a journalist originally from the beach in California, now working to love nature from my home in Alaska. Since September 2017, I've spent at least 20 consecutive minutes outside every single day, no matter what. Ready to hear from experts and outdoor lovers who make heading into nature just a part of who they are while we work to do the same? Let's go! If you've heard any of our backstory here at Humans Outside, you know how passionate we are about veterans and the outdoors, and you know why. If you haven't, here's a quick recap. My husband, Luke, is a U.S. Army veteran and member of the Alaska Army National Guard who served and was injured in Afghanistan in 2009. We didn't really understand those hidden injuries, traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, until 2016 when he left active duty. We packed the station wagon and we moved up here to Alaska, sight unseen, so he could focus on spending more time outside doing the one thing we had found that really made him feel better, heading outside. Today he runs a nonprofit, Remedy Alpine, that focuses on taking Alaska veterans into nature. So, yeah, we're passionate about veterans outdoors because it's personal. And it's personal for today's guest, too. Lornett Vestal is a U.S. Navy veteran who, like Luke, realized just how important heading outside was to his post-Navy life. Lornett now works for the Sierra Club, where he is their military outdoor senior campaign representative. While he understands the power of nature because he lives it, Lornett has a special insight into that world through his work in leading that program and focused on this, leveraging the research and policy changes to better veteran lives. Today, Lornett is going to talk to us about all of that stuff. Lornett, welcome to Humans Outside.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Okay. So we start all of our interviews listening to our guests tell us about their favorite spot to have a conversation outside, as if we are just sort of imagining ourselves hanging out with you in your favorite outdoor space. Where are we with you today?
Well, I think the best place to have a conversation, I always say around a campfire.
Yeah.
Which, depending on what part of the country, you can do that and you can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
So
could always do it, I guess. Okay. So fire
I wouldn't do it in
season
California. So
notwithstanding.
I'm in Georgia, so let's just say we're around in Georgia, in backcountry Georgia, around a campfire because we do have rain here, unlike
Yeah.
our colleagues out west, our friends and family and colleagues out
Hmm.
west in the Southwest in California, where if you have a campfire, that's great, but you might burn down the whole state.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't do that, people. But we're in Georgia, lots of rain. You can have a campfire. I think those are like the best conversations. Sometimes I would have an adult beverage. Other times, maybe not, depending on what type of outing it is. But I think just kind of the fire it's just the stars, the fire, and a good conversation. And if you stay up late and you're like one of the last few people around the campfire, those conversations get really, really interesting.
Yeah, they definitely do. Lots of processing, lots of good stories that happen there. I've definitely seen that myself. So tell us though, okay, as we're sitting around our campfire, as it were, how did you become somebody who likes to head outside? What's your story on that?
Um, wow, that's a good question. What is my story? Well, I kind of found this work by accident.
Hmm.
So I'll give you the quick abbreviated version of how I got to this point. But after I got out in 2005, after serving on aboard the USS Cleveland LPD-7, which is now decommissioned, so either it is a museum somewhere or is deep six, which means it is somewhere is basically become a coral reef for a lot of fishes and other creatures that live in the ocean. One of the two. I don't know where it's at right now. What happened? What was the fate of my old ship? But I went to college, started NIU, used the GI Bill, and Illinois, my home state, has a Illinois veteran grant. So I basically got college mostly paid for thanks to my service. And I majored in sociology, thought I was going to be like a professor or something like that. And then end up falling on my backup plan. which is becoming a social worker. So I attended in 2009, started attending the University of Chicago and got my degree in social work. They call it social service administration because they're all like fancy and have the student loans to prove it. But after that, I ended up working. I thought I would be working with vets. One thing led to another. I ended up working in education for like several years after, during grad school and after grad school as an intern, and then worked as an administrator at Chicago Public Schools. And then a year after that, worked several years as a working for educational nonprofits. My wife, who I met in Chicago, was an attorney, but she worked for an environmental law center, which is a organization in Chicago, and she did environmental law. And when we moved to Georgia, because she got another job with Southern Environmental Law Center, or something like that. I think this is called. Hopefully, I got it right. But she didn't like that place, so she won't yell at me about that. Anyway, she was still doing environmental law at the time. And when I moved down here, I was trying to get jobs in education with my social work background and kind of want to do that type of work that I've been doing because I think, vets hanging out with young people, teenagers and young adults, it's a great combination because you have these life experiences. They're going through things. They have questions, whether that's what do they want to join the military or not. And you can be honest with them. And everybody has their own decision about how they get to that point. But it was just really great work. And I love that type of work. But she was like, Lornett, you're not having any luck with those jobs. Look for big green organizations, environmental organizations. And I, being a typical veteran, being like, hey, what do they want with a bunch of dumbass veterans? Big environmental organizations. That sounds ridiculous. I didn't listen to her several months in, still no luck with work, finding a stable career here in Georgia. I was doing some volunteer work at a church, working in the soup kitchen, but that was about the only type of work I was doing, which is volunteer work. But still, like, money happens and we're adults and we got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I reconsidered what my wife had told me because I should have listened the first time. And Amy, you probably know this. They never listen the first time you tell them. So I was like, all right, maybe I should try some big green organizations. And Sierra Club was one of the first ones I thought about and saw that they had a position open for the Sierra Club Military Outdoors. And I happened to apply. And kind of when I got to know a little bit more about the role, I was like, you are really going to pay me to get folks to do outdoor adventure and outdoor activities. That's pretty cool because these are only things I really only done on vacation or when I was on vacation. So one thing led to another. I got the job and I've been at the Sierra Club for almost 6 years now. So that's how I ended up here. So it was not a straight path. It was like many things in life, a windy road. And I should
Do
have listened to my wife in the first place.
Yeah, well, isn't that how it goes? So you I know you have a passion for the environment, and obviously your wife does too. Had you personally experienced this healing power of nature that you now leverage for military program folks prior to joining Sierra Club on this? Is that something you had personally experienced?
Actually, Amy, it was. In college, I have a friend who was also ended up being a social worker. So we're like the small percentage of male social workers in this world. His name was Ulysses, and we met in undergrad at a anti-war protest. Funny enough, but we became good friends. We're still good friends, and he introduced me to sweat lodges. So these are kind of indigenous ceremonies, cleansing ceremonies, and I've done them in the backyards in Chicago. I've done them in the back country of Illinois. I've done them out in Utah, and this is all before I even step foot into Sierra Club. I had know right then and there that I was kind of utilizing this ancient kind of cleansing ceremony uh, given to us by indigenous folks to kind of process everything that had happened in my life to that point. So that was really the first time. And also besides that, after I was honorable discharged in 2005, I did spend a summer in Costa Rica. I was volunteering for Habitat for Humanity, but during the weekends we would travel to the countryside, hiking, whitewater rafting, climbing, zip lining, going to the beach. It was all kind of outdoor stuff. It's a beautiful country, Beautiful people. It was perhaps one of the most amazing experiences as a young man can have. I was young at the time, so we also did a lot of partying too. So I'm not gonna sit there and say we just were doing great wholesome fun. I was 22 at the time. I was a former Navy. I was just out of the Navy, so it was a lot of beer drinking and
Fair
other
enough.
things going on. But I didn't know that I was kind of doing that transition piece um, post military, which is something that I've talked about um, on 3 different podcasts
Mm,
this past month.
mm,
And this kind of what, and I don't know if your partner feels the same way, Amy. But what was interesting about kind of to join the military, everybody at the baseline has to go through boot camp to become a
mhm,
soldier, sailor,
mhm.
marine, airman, or whatever they call the space force folks. I'm gonna call them space cadets. And I
No
kid my
offense to the space cadets, but that's what I called them too. I think they prefer guardians, but I'm sorry, guys. We're going with space
Are they
cadet
the Green Lantern Corps? The Guardians? That's the sound like the Green
guardian.
Lantern Corps.
I
That's just showing my
know.
nerd card. So I'm gonna back off.
We're
If
just
you
gonna
want,
call them space cadets, or
well,
for short, spaceys. Just kidding.
well, we kid them. We love you too, Space Force folks. But you go through the boot camp process, and also you got to do your training depending on what your AOS is, I mean MOS is, or rate, and also you get promoted in other schools, and training comes along with that. But everybody goes through boot camp to become a military member. But when you get out and you get discharged, whether you get discharged from the guard or active duty or reserves, you kind of be like you go through this MEPS program in well, I think it's called MEPS, or that's something like that. It's a 2-day program where you sit in class and they tell you don't have to shave anymore and good luck, and that's it. And I think that's we're doing it wrong, and this kind of transition piece is very important because you look at many indigenous cultures, and when they had warring nations and their soldiers came back from the battlefield, they had before they could go back into regular society, they had to kind of process that and kind of be brought back into society to process their experience. And I say this to go for all military service members, because I think many civilians think that every service member at whatever scene they saw in the movies, like if they saw Black Hawk Down or Jarhead or any type of platoon, or Apocalypse Now, any type of war movie, they think every soldier did that. First off, not everybody's in the army or the Marines, so that's very different. And,
Some of
and
them are
wars,
spaceys.
some of them are space cadets. So not everybody sees combat, but everybody has the experience of being in the military, and it's a very different world compared to the rest of the civilian world. It's very different. And very few of us will end up like General Colin Powell. That's just
Mm,
his
mhm.
career was very different from a lot of people. But most of us regular vets who don't become like high ranking generals and elected officials or appointed officials, we go through the service. But when we get out, that's kind of it's no really processing what we've been through. Whether we've been through a
Right.
combat zone, whether we supported individuals in the combat zone, whether we just been in the military, we don't do that transition piece. So programs like the Sierra Club Military Outdoors is kind of that that gap to help folks who have gotten out, all type of service members who've gotten out the military or still in, and kind of want to just they might be transitioning. They might have got out just last week. They might have got out 20 years ago. They might have got out 40 years ago, but they come to our program and they can connect with veterans, military, families, and the larger community who are interested in kind of working with veterans, because we don't bite, but it's kind of healing through nature and connecting with fellow veterans. So
Mm.
veterans healing through nature for the benefit of the veteran and nature. So, obviously, with the Sierra Club being a conservation group, we want to protect wild spaces. So that's our ultimate goal. But our military outdoors program is just kind of helping military veterans with that transition process by connecting it with other veterans. And what I really like about our program is that we train our volunteers to be outdoor leaders. So the veterans can come along and they can do whatever type of trips they want to do. If they want to do some mountain biking, they could do that. Fly fishing, regular fishing, kayaking, they want to float down a river on a tube, they can do that too. If they just want to kind of go meet up at the park and do some yoga, we are open. It's all up to our volunteer leaders of what they want to do. And I've been on some pretty incredible outing experiences locally and nationally. So,
So we're obviously pretty convinced that you and I, and also here at Humans Outside, that spending time outside is life changing. Um, so I'm wondering if you could dive a little bit deeper into something you just mentioned, which is this particular power for veterans in heading outside. Um, what is some information and research that you lean on when developing these programs, or when convincing a fellow veteran that heading out into nature might be the thing that they're really looking for? What do you lean on?
so we partner with the University of Utah,
Hmm.
and we did some studies back in the day, and also kind of currently trips that I've led personally, trips that my colleagues have led, and we measure in the researchers, the people far smarter than us, those PhD types. They measure cortisol levels pre and post trip, and then also followed up with the vets who came on our outings several months later to kind of test stress levels, hormone levels, and things of that nature, and saw that there were positive changes. The downside is, you can have that kind of zone blissful moment on the trail when you're off, and then you're back into your everyday, zone. If you don't kind of have that reconnection, or you're taken away from that connection, you can kind of go back to normal levels after so many
Mhm.
months. So our goal and what we're trying to do at the military outdoors, even if veterans don't go to our programs, having programs available, having the VA look at recreational therapy and other alternatives. We don't say that we can cure every veteran, because talk therapy, medicine, is very important, and we're not going to replace doctors and therapists and psychiatrists. But we consider this a supplement, and that it can be a very positive supplement. And what's even more powerful is the fact that anybody can do it. We led trips where we had wounded warriors, veterans who suffer from traumatic brain injury or combat injuries, missing limbs, or dealing with severe PTSD, and just getting past that initial stage of just getting out there. And once they get out
Mhm.
there, people come together and support that person no matter what. And you won't be left alone. You won't be stranded. And I guess the hardest thing, even with that research, I can tell that research to like the average vet, and they're like, I don't give a crap. The hardest folks to recruit are the Army and Marines, because they think going outside is like going to the field. They got to do drill and all that type of stuff, and they're like, pardon my language, F that. They're like, I don't know if we can curse on this podcast, so I'll keep it PG. So like, F that. I don't want to go out to I don't want to go out to the field. And my brother, who's still active duty, he's a major right now, and he was like, why would I go out to the field, or that? If I wanted the thrill, I can just make love to my wife. I was like, there's a different type of thrills, man. But we're not asking you to go out in the field. You're not doing drill. You're not out in the field. To my sailors, to my Marines and Army folks, this is a different type of outing. You're not going to have like a 4-day briefing to go out in the field. You're going to go out and have fun. It's safety briefings, of course, depending on what you do to keep everybody safe. But you know, most of it is the outdoor adventure and getting outside. So whether it's a day hike or a climb.
I've heard that too, folks, veterans saying, I don't like camping because I did enough of that in the army, or I did enough of that in Marine Corps, or whatever. And of course, you and I both know, and anybody who's like gone on an outdoor adventure knows that these are like whatever field exercise you were doing out of the back of, your Humvee, or in a training area or whatever, is sizably not the same as
Oh yeah, yeah. It's kind of like I refused to like go on a ship for a long time, because I'm like, I was on the Navy. I seen enough of a ship, and then I went,
yeah.
and then in like 2008, hanging out with a friend who's joined it. He was in the Finnish armed forces, and we became friends in undergrad. His name is Timmy, and I visited him in Helsinki, and it was like we go sail to Estonia from Helsinki, and I was like, why don't I get on the ship? That's ridiculous. But a cruise ship is far different from
Oh
a
yeah.
Navy warship. It is a totally different experience.
Totally different
They got
experience.
nightclubs on a
Yeah.
cruise ship. You can buy booze, you got food, you got live music.
You don't have to
all
watch
type
your
of
head
crazy.
as often. Yeah.
Exactly. You're not hitting your head. You don't have to go down like portholes and like you're not in the bow of the ship. In the
Yeah. No
you know have
no,
to be
like,
you have to fight the
doors
fires
to
on the
step
engine room.
over. Yeah, no doors to step over or
Yeah,
you're gonna
you know,
face plant. Yeah, it's
and
totally
in Navy,
different thing.
yeah, who they couldn't call the fire department. We were the fire department, so
That's right.
we had to put the fire out. Good, so
Also,
you don't have to
like,
do that.
depending what ship you're on, fewer aircraft landing right on it. So
Yes, and I was on a carrier, which I call the pride of the Navy. I was on a landing transport dock, a LPD,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
we still had the Harriers and the Helos that would land on
Yeah.
our flight deck.
Fewer of
So
those. If one of those is landing on your cruise ship, you got a whole different situation. So
exactly, so it was a very different experience. So to my soldiers and Marines out there, get a camping and hiking in a day trip or a backpacking trip is nothing like a field exercise. I think we scarred our fellow soldiers and sailors, and our fellow soldier Marines, and a few sailors who get out and do field exercises like the Seabees. But it's nothing like that. This is all for enjoyment, all to get the benefits of nature. You're
yeah.
not doing field exercises.
Yeah.
No one's gonna shoot at you.
You mentioned the group dynamic, and I want to touch on that a little bit because the other thing here is something I think that anyone listening to this may have experienced outside. All the things we were talking about are not exclusive to veterans, so much as we're discussing why they are of use to veterans. But this idea of a group dynamic outside, that you have a group of people who are all experiencing the same level of challenge or the same level of newness or the same level of discomfort. And you are going through that as a unit. Not to use the word unit, that might be triggering for some people, but as a group, you're experiencing this in a group dynamic. So you're all overcoming the same thing, and this builds a bond in a way that you don't have when you do something non-challenging. It also builds a bond in a way that service members might be familiar with through their military service, that unit dynamic. It creates friendships, it creates understanding, and it creates a safe space where you can deal with other things that you're going through because you've created this trust with the people around you while going through something challenging. Is that, am I nailing it, or is that off base?
No, no, you're absolutely right. That kind of magic window of 3 days out in the backcountry
Yeah.
and kind of watching their group come together. I'm going to be honest with you, Amy. I've run and led and partook in many, many outings over the years, even
Mhm.
prior to this, military outdoors work, and even kind of with my Sierra Club work. So this kind of put in the context of these last almost 6 years. There's only been one time where we had to ask a gentleman to leave.
Hmm.
Besides that, it's kind of like that harmony or that the group comes together and it's just like, wow, man, we really did this. We floated down this river. We climbed. We did this climb. We did this like backpacking trip and slept under the freaking stars. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing. And I grew up in the city, so I saw like one or two stars, and I don't know if those are like planes or like pollution. So
Yeah.
I didn't sleep. I never slept under the stars. So that these are the things. It's called the science of
Hmm.
awe,
Mhm.
and it's measurable in the lab. So I think that you're absolutely right, and I think the folks who are listen to this podcast, um, might know that. And if they have some people who are skeptical, friends or family, or shipmate, or battle buddy, whatever you want to call it, who's skeptical about it, bring them out. I had a buddy of mine who I served with. I consider him like a brother, because you built this camaraderie in the military. I think it's unlike any other um, space that we exist in. And this isn't to like glorify war or combat or anything like that, but it is this camaraderie you get because you're with
Mhm.
these individuals 24/7, 7 days a week in highly stressful situations.
Right.
So you get to know folks and people with different backgrounds. But he was skeptical about like, why would I go outside? I'm in San Diego, I'm chilling. I could do an IPA. I go to the bar. Like, why would I was like, look, just come on this river trip, you and your wife. And I've converted them to avid outdoorsman. He came on a Green River trip with me last month. him and his wife for their anniversary a couple years ago. They just went to the backcountry of out in California, out in San Diego, and just camped out for a couple of days and grilled out there and had a great time. So it's kind of just like to get your mind away from the everyday hustle and bustle and just kind of be a little bit quiet
Yeah.
and get a piece of.
Yeah. It's that, touching back to group dynamic, I'm remembering even we haven't done this in the last year because really the what happened was the pandemic canceled it and then we lost the habit. But before that, we would go every week to a community run on Monday nights. Okay, so rain, sunshine, rain, hail. One time we ran and like knee-high flooding, like or because we're in Alaska, 60-mile-an-hour winds and negative temperatures, right? So, I mean, that's just a Tuesday, or in this case, a Monday, right?
Yeah.
What folks down south might call a hurricane, we're like, it's the evening. I don't know,
Well, that sounds like
So,
Chicago in the winter, so I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, yeah, same kind of
That's
thing, right?
someone
Just
being born and raised there, so we
right,
get those
exactly.
negative temperatures
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
and that
So,
lake
you
front of
know,
snow.
right, you go outside with a group of people who are all experiencing this same weather-related challenge. The run itself is not very far. We're talking, 5K, okay? But you're out there in a unpleasant condition. You're a small group of people who showed up for this despite the unpleasantness. You do the thing, and then you go and have dinner and you revel in the fact that you all did this hard thing together, and it builds this group bond in a way. I don't wouldn't know these people were it not for us all going out there and then meeting afterwards to talk about how terrible it was, right? Like or how great it was or how awesome it was or that cool sunset we saw or whatever, right? How the stars shown tonight. Just kind of like that awe that you're talking about. But it doesn't it there's something to be said for moving through this challenge as a group that builds that understanding and that supportive bond.
Yeah, and what's even crazier is, I've experienced it where I have a similar group of folks that I'm kind of constantly with, but then there's some other individuals because our program is national that
Mhm.
I've done outings with in Texas or out west in Colorado, and we might not see each other for a couple of years, and then we come back for an outing, and it's like we're old friends, just
Right.
reconnected, and we're like we start off where we left off at. So there's
Absolutely.
some ribbing and some jabs, and we're making poker fun of folks and things like that. But it's all in good fun, and we're having a good time, and it's really 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 fun, and you just kind of you build
Yeah.
those relationships, and you can never kind of take those away. So
Yeah.
I can go to other different parts of this country and be like, hey, call one of my vet buddies up and they'll be like, hey, you can crash at my place. We can go here and check this place out. Or one of the civilians who come on the military outdoors outings with us and they're like, hey, you can stay up in my place. I got some friends. If they came through Atlanta, Georgia, I'd be like, hey, you're welcome to come down here. And we can go. I could take you to places in the city that you'll think you're in the backcountry because I've
Mm.
explored all these places. It's just something that you do. So the
Yeah.
pandemic happened, and I know a lot of veterans, especially, were kind of disconnected from those groups, those communities that they had built post pandemic. Things are opening back up. We have a vaccine. Hopefully, folks are getting that. But we did lose some of our fellow veterans during this pandemic through the isolation. It
Yeah.
was challenging, even for me. And one of the things that kind of really, really helped me out was solo outings. It would just be me and my crazy German Shepherd Mayor. It's crazy because no one can sneak up on me. He'll maul you. So he is very protective.
Noted.
Yes, sweet dog. He means well, but he's a vicious beast. Everybody thinks the pit bull is mean. Pit bull is nice. She's a pushover. Anybody can come steal her. She'll go with you. If you got a treat, she's yours. Not him. He is vicious. But he's a great dog. He loves long hikes. And that's what I did during the pandemic, these solo hikes. And it just kind of gave me that peace of mind. And I used to bring like headphones and listen to music, but then I just like it just be me and my thoughts and with the dog. And sometimes I go and I wouldn't see not a single soul. And sometimes I see some other people and say hello to them on the trail. But when people get outdoors in those spaces, even if it's like embracing the suck, because in the southeast it's going to rain on you no matter what you do. Where I'm at, in the part of the country I'm at, when you go outdoors for multiple days, you're going to get some rain. If you don't like getting wet, just get over it. You're going to get wet. But people are always in a pleasant mood. and it's just a good time.
Hey humans, just a quick break to ask for a huge favor. If you're loving this episode, could you take a second to give us 5 stars or a great rating and review in whatever podcast platform you use? Those ratings help other humans find the podcast too and spread that humans outside love around the world. I can't thank you enough for listening and sharing your support through a rating and review. Now, back to the episode. Okay, so you talked earlier about pursuing mental health and medication, and I don't want to, or mental health help rather, and medication, and I don't want to discredit either of those things. So, just quick caveat: if mental health intervention from a provider or pharmaceutical intervention from a doctor are awesome tools that we should use the tools we have, and please don't be taking medical advice from me because I'm not a doctor. But I am wondering if you think, in your experience from working in this space, that Americans make things more complicated necessary, and we maybe rely on those things as a first or even worse, only line of defense. And I'm thinking in particular pharmaceuticals when we have nature-based solutions that we could be using as well or instead, again, with the advice of a doctor and all of those important things. So, just
Yeah,
caveat
well,
there, but
I think no, Amy, no, that's a good question.
don't flush your meds, okay, guys? Like if you have a prescription or you're using medical advice from an actual doctor, please consult with them. But the question stands.
Yeah, no, well, Amy, so no, I appreciate that question, and I stand at a very unique position because my background is in social work.
Mhm.
So we learn about
Mhm.
mental health, mental illness, and the challenges that folks living with those mental health issues have, and I'm one of those people who suffer from PTSD, anxiety, depression, insomnia, post my service years, and just kind of from my growing up as
Yeah.
a has a child in the foster care system. So
Mm.
these things have shaped my life, and I dealt with my own mental health challenges, and I wrote about them on my website. So if you are, need help, yes, do seek professional medical advice, and professionals, counselor, therapists, psychiatrists, doctors. So that's the caveat. But the other piece is that nature and healing through nature can be a supplement to that.
Mm.
So we're
Mhm.
not trying to say
Mhm.
that like you go outdoors and you're completely healed.
Right.
And also you're never really truly, and this is just my perspective as a social worker and speaking here, you're never truly healed from your mental health issues. It's just you learn how to manage and cope with them in
Yeah.
better ways. So
Yeah.
instead of going to like with your buddies and getting like, you know, blackout drunk and get into a fist fight, you
Mhm.
take a hike in the woods. You can go fishing. You can go to your local park, do some yoga,
Yeah.
play a game of pick a basketball or a football. So you're getting physical activity, you're being outdoors. Because I think also another thing is we talk outdoors, especially in the outdoor industry, and this is what I hope is changing, is that you have to go to some far off place. So
Right.
you're in Alaska,
Mhm.
so people might think go to Mount Denali and have a
Yeah.
challenging expedition out there. You can go to your local community. There's parks, you have YMCA's, you have public pools. You can still get outside in your
Absolutely.
local communities. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a park that I've been utilizing since the pandemic started. That's only a couple blocks from me. When I lived in Chicago, my hometown, we have the lakefront, and there's lots of city parks along the lakefront. So, you can get to them, whether you have a car, whether you have to take the public transportation. They have them in your cities, and if you don't, you can work with an organization like the Sierra Club to make sure that you have access to a green space, because I think that's inherent for all people's
Mhm.
well-being. And there's actual studies that show that just being outdoors in nature, or seeing, by seeing trees just for like 10 minutes, can improve people's moods.
Yeah.
So it's out there. And obviously this is not going to replace medicine or talk therapy for folks dealing with mental health issues. But we just advocate that this is a supplement, getting outside.
So, I'm wondering though, and I kind of, I guess I'm kind of basing this off of experience watching the Department of Veterans Affairs or the VA. and their hospitals work with specifically with veterans, um, where it seems an awful lot like uh, they're quick to prescribe something versus working with somebody to do medication if needed in conjunction with other types of therapy, including talk therapy, right? But also including heading out into a park or a green space.
Yeah. So no, that's a good question, Amy, and also someone who's experienced this to like the going to the VA and the doctors like, oh, you have generalized anxiety disorder. Here goes these pills. Here goes this
Right.
long scroll that you're never going to read that has all the side effects, and you
Yeah.
take them and you're good to go. And then you take them and you feel like a zombie for like months on end, and you're just like,
Hmm.
this is not really good. I'm not really happy. I'm not really sad. I don't really feel anything.
Right.
So yes, but I do think one thing, Amy, is I think that's slowly changing, and I think that's
Mm.
because of not just veterans like myself, and this is there's so many other individuals out there, guys, girls, and everything in between, who are doing this really great work, and it's the VA, so it's a large government organization that is slow to change, but I talk to therapists inside the VA health system who are doing recreational outdoor therapy.
Mhm.
I talk
Mhm.
to veterans who are going to school to specifically learn that, or are taking my path of becoming a social worker to give
Mhm.
back to the veteran community. So it's going to be up to us to kind of change the VA because we are the VA. Without veterans, there is no VA. So
Right.
that'll be up to us to kind of turn them around.
That's such a
Obviously,
good point.
the work in my organization, that's what our ultimate
Mhm.
goal is to be like the VA. Look at this, has legit, and I think there is lots of research mounting, and there's lots of folks getting into this type of work, and there's lots of anecdotal evidence, as we both know personally, about how this can benefit folks for the better, especially our men and women and individuals who serve and
Yeah.
still serve.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point about the changing it from the inside because the other thing is like if you go into one of those appointments empowered with this idea of, hey, is there recreational do you have any recreational therapy resources or therapeutic recreation, which of course are two different things, right?
Yeah,
Do you have any resources like that, and then give the provider at least an opportunity to bring them up or to know that someone's interested in that, and yeah, I think that's really valuable. I'm wondering if you think there is a risk of overcomplicating or overprogramming. So like the other direction, right? Where we say, where we forget this idea of you can just go take a walk in the park with your dog in Atlanta, and we instead are overcompensating and suggesting, to really use outdoors, you have to go on a 3-day trip with the military outdoor program at Sierra Club.
yeah. Well, I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I do think we can overcomplicate it, and we have to change what the outdoors is. It's just
Mm,
being outside your house,
yeah,
and that could be in your local community because you have those green spaces. And if you don't, working with community organizations to get those green spaces in your communities, respective
hmm,
communities, because I do think I've been working in this industry for about over 5 years now. And it is this idea that you have to go to the Grand Canyon or go to Denali or
yeah,
go to Costa Rica and do some crazy like adventure. And nothing wrong with that, but that's it's a lot of barriers that prevent many, many people from doing that. People have work, they have children, um, they have access issues. So these are barriers that we all got to come together to work with. And all these things affect all Americans, but they also affect veterans because veterans are a reflection of the United States because
right.
that's the people who serve are people from the communities, whether they're a small town, city, or a little community. We all come from those places. So whether it's a city or a small town, we all come from that. So we still face the same challenges. But the outdoor industry has been this ideal of that you do this big, epic expedition to be outdoors. And being outdoors, it's like what little kids do. Like they go outside and play. I'll have a stick and I'll have like a little Star Wars fight. Well, I guess that's what we did when we were kids. I don't know what they do now. They
No,
probably
my
go
son
outside
does
with
that.
their
No,
okay.
no.
So I'm glad the kids are still playing with
Yeah.
sticks. Well, yeah, they're just getting outside, having a good time. Getting their hands dirty, getting, I was a little rough house little boy, so all my little jean pants would always have like holes in the knees because I'd just be, digging up worms and like, running around and riding my little Mr. T big wheel. So sometimes we can just be a kid again. We don't have to make it like we have to go. We need all this great gear, and we got to go to REI because
Right,
REI is
right.
expensive. Dick's
Yeah.
Sporting Good, Walmart, or Target has some gear there too that is much more affordable for the
Mhm.
average Joe. Not knocking REI, they're great. The people work there great. I have lots of relationships with them, but that stuff is a little pricey. So
Totally hearing you. They've
you
taken
gotta
my
be
money, I understand,
yeah,
but I go there anyway.
but there are barriers for certain people to still get out of that. So you don't need to have like
Yeah,
a master's degree in social work. You don't need to be a PhD at some big university
right.
researching. You don't need to be a medical doctor. You can just go outside, whatever you like to do. If you just like to take a walk around the block, I mean, that's helped out
Mhm.
my mother, who was dealing with some health issues, and just kind of during the summer, she would just go walk around the block, and that's so you can get outdoors. I think we just have to change what we think about that because people are getting outside. It's just that it's this divide where like the pros are like you have to go snowboarding or skiing in the Alps
Right.
to like be outdoors versus just like you can just have a backyard barbecue or just go to your local park
Yeah.
and do something there and you can get
Or
outdoors.
not even have a local park, you can go
Yeah,
sit on your front stoop. I mean, we always say here, out any outtime ou out any outside time is better than no outside
yeah,
time, and for sure, is there a continuum of really good versus kind of meh? Okay, yes, of course there is, right? Of course going to Denali or of course going to Costa Rica is gonna feel better than sitting on your front stoop in the city, right? But, like,
yeah,
let's not pretend it's not. But that being said, if your front stoop in the city is what you have access to, of course that's better than sitting
exactly.
inside your house. Like, and we actually talked to a researcher on the podcast not terribly long ago, Dr. Kathleen Wolfe, who talked about the research on nearby nature for us. And she pointed out that, and I'm not suggesting, guys, that you resort to this full time because I still, even Dr. Wolfe agreed that heading into the backyard was important. But she noted that there's research that shows that even staring, like focusing on a scenic photograph of a rainforest or a sky or something along those trees, shows benefits to not doing that. Even that simple step is beneficial in a way that is tied to the same benefits you have by heading outside and looking at that tree. And I
Yeah.
thought that was fascinating.
Oh no! That doctor's absolutely right. Um, and just kind of realizing what you got, and I do think the outdoor industry needs to work on kind of breaking down those barriers so folks can feel comfortable getting
Yeah.
outside to those places. And one thing I do love is that since moving down here to Georgia, it's mostly warm most of the year. And I've been on many trails throughout the state of Georgia. And what I'm always happy about is seeing all types of people out there, old, young, um, you
Hmm.
know, different groups of people, different races of people, people utilizing these outdoor spaces in nearby nature because some of these parks are right next to the city of Atlanta. So we should be fighting to kind of get everybody access, and also like make sure people leave no trace. Because I've been on trails where people just trash the place and like if you bring some trash in, take it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, because there's other creatures that live there besides the humans and utilize that
absolutely.
space. So we don't want to just like leave a bunch of junk there. And that's my conservation effort. I mean, that's my soapbox for this podcast.
I like it. As we wrap up here, tell us though, since we've been talking about veterans, we've been talking about outdoors. How do you ask if people ask you how they can support veterans in their community, inside or outside? What do you tell them?
One of the things I could tell them is I think most important thing is breaking down the stereotype of veterans.
Mm,
And I think we were talking earlier about the Vietnam era and kind of this idea of the so-called shell shock veteran, and they're this kind of oh my god they've been scarred by war. Never every veteran's experience in the military and armed services has been the same. Um, but at the end of the day, we're just people. So that's the first step, just kind of breaking your assumptions. And also, one thing I also like to say, if they're not just all like white guys with beards, some of us are black guys with beards. But no, but no. Besides the joke, we have veterans' experiences are a lot more diverse, especially with my post 9/11 generation. You have a lot more women veterans. You have LGBTQ veterans. You have veterans who are,
Mm-hmm.
members of the trans community. You have disabled veterans. You have, the older World War II veterans, and there's Vietnam veterans, and you have the younger veterans who are wrapping up the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Who, there'll be a new unfortunate war that they'll be on the battlefront of. When I'm the old vet, and I'm like, oh man, and I'll talk to the young guy or young girl and be like, oh, where you go to? Where you serve? Blah, blah, blah. So, but at the end of the day, we're all people. So, and
Mm.
also one of the coolest things that I found out, and I didn't know this when I got out in 2005, is all the organizations that have been created by veterans, like your husband Luke, who serve veterans locally. And I would say if you want to get involved, that's a great way. Whether it's an organization like the Sierra Club Military Outdoors, the Mission Continues, Team Red, White, and Blue, see how you can volunteer. Even if you're a civilian and you have no connection to the military and veteran community, still, you can donate. You can donate your time, donate money, donate gear, resources, and or just come out and volunteer, meet some of the folks, men and women who serve. We don't bite. Some of us might curse a little bit, but we're nice people, and we won't hurt you. And we always love the supportive community. So if you want to say thank you for your service, that's the best way you can do it.
Hmm.
And you can find local veteran organizations all throughout your community. And what I really like is that the veterans, especially our post 9/11 generation, has really taken upon themselves to learn from the mistakes of the past and not leave our servicemen and women hanging, because yeah, folks get out the military and people deal with challenges. There's PTSD,
Yeah.
um, there's traumatic brain injury, there's kind of rebuilding their personal lives. People lose family, people lose themselves, and we're trying to build a community where even if folks have faced those challenges, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You went through your challenges, but we're here to help. And there's so many places to help. And even the VA, I know the VA gets a bad rep sometimes, and they're not perfect. But I think over the years they're working towards being better. And like I said earlier, it's going to be up to the men and women who utilize the VA to make sure it's better and a welcoming place
Yeah.
for all. And that's what we got to do. So
Yeah.
learn to realize that the veteran community is a far more diverse than we ever imagined.
How can people get involved in the Sierra Club's military program?
Well, I would say that the best way to get involved with us is to reach out to your local Sierra Club chapter, because we have 65 throughout the lower 48 and and Alaska and Hawaii, but we also have offices and chapters in Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands. So we have 400 groups. So you can find Sierra Club everywhere locally. And if you're a veteran or a civilian, all you got to do, first step, if you want to get veterans outdoors, is kind of work with your local chapter to become an outings leader.
Mm.
And I'm working on a larger project where we're building military outdoors outings with a partnership with the YMCA. So right now we're in 4 different cities: San Antonio, Detroit, um, in Indianapolis and Jacksonville, Florida. But hopefully, we're looking to grow that in the next few years. So that
Cool.
will be another resource in this partnership with the YMCA to kind of grow this program that way to create more local outings. But if folks want to get started, just sign up to become a Sierra Club member and reach out to your local chapter or group and see what they got going and see what outings. And you go check some outings out. And if you like it, you can start leading your own, and it's whatever you want. And we train you to be an outings leader. We don't want you to be like, hey, I never went kayaking before. Let me go do this.
No.
Stay in your lane. Stay what you're comfortable with. If you are terrified of the water, probably shouldn't get out in the water. If you're
Mm.
afraid of heights, maybe don't go hiking in the Rockies. But whatever your own pace. Even if you want to just bring some folks together to come out to your local park and just walk around the field track, that's absolutely fine. You can lead those type of outings. It's whatever you
Very
want to do.
cool.
So that's the best way.
Awesome. Okay, so have a little leftovers around here. We sort of were ragging on needing too much gear earlier, but that being said, I've heard some fantastic recommendations in this part of our show for not just things to buy, really just tips or tricks, or some couple people have even recommended never forgetting to carry enough snacks as their favorite outdoor or most essential gear. And I think that's really on point. So, with that in mind, it doesn't have to be something that you buy. Do you have a favorite or most essential outdoor gear item to recommend for us today?
I'm in the southeast, so I'm gonna just be honest with you. Like I told you earlier, even if the forecast says it's going to be a week of sunshine and
Mm.
hot weather, you're going to get rained on. So always bring an extra change of clothes and waterproof gear. I got
Yeah.
a nice little jacket I got from Marshalls that was only like $40, and it's waterproof. I've been rafting in it. I've been hiking in it. I've got drenched pouring rain, and I'm still good to go. So if you're in a very tropical or subtropical climate like Georgia, bring your waterproof gear. It's the best thing you can get, and you don't have to go spend. You don't have to go to North Face and buy a jacket for like $200. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
It's the
That's
best piece of
awesome.
gear I got.
That applies in the Northwest, that applies in Alaska, that applies all sorts of
Just
places.
your
Keep that
layers.
rain jacket.
Just get your layers.
Yeah.
Get that down jacket if you're going to be someplace that's cold. Heck,
Yeah.
I've camped in Utah where like the temperature is like 80 degrees or 90 in the daytime, and then at nighttime it's like 32 or 31, and you're freezing. So
Yep.
those layers. But I say I caveat is the waterproof gear because
Yeah.
it's going to
I'm
rain
with
on
you.
your head out
You're gonna
here.
get wet.
You're going to get wet.
All right, final thing. Play set earlier. We pretended we're hanging out around a campfire in a non-drought location. Walk us out though, just sort of envisioning your favorite outdoor moment. If there's a moment in time outside that you harken back to when you just close your eyes and think of that best moment outside, where are you and what are you doing?
So I'm going back to 2018, I believe, and there was a solar eclipse, and we
Mm,
were lucky enough in this state to be in the path of totality. And my wife thought it would be a very nice birthday gift, post birthday gift, to take me on a canoe trip with a group in North Georgia to paddle out and see that uh, solar eclipse. And we did. And I always joke and say it's the most beautiful thing I've seen besides my wife. But it is perhaps one of the most surreal and serene and most beautiful experiences I've ever had to experience in outdoors and just in general. Um, only thing that's second compared to that was my time in Big Bend National Park, and it's pretty windy out there, so we didn't set up a tent because the tent would have blown away. And my sleeping bag and pad almost blew away, but we found it in the dark. Yay us. But it's sleeping under the stars, and
yeah.
I got to see a laser show for absolutely free. So I think
Yeah, you
those.
did.
So it's kind of hard those, but I think the solar eclipse with my wife on a canoe is very one of the greatest memories. And I almost was a bad boy. I was like, I'm gonna flip the canoe and like we're gonna go for a swim, but then I had to realize I had to drive back 3 hours with her, so probably not do that. So I thought against that because I was like, oh, she
So
was like
smart.
she was a little worried out there on the boat for a while, but I'm like I calmed her down, and then I was like, maybe I should just dump her for fun. But I'm not a guide. I'm not gonna dump her on fun. I mean, it was a guide in me. Was like, let's just do it. Make this trip more interesting. But then I also realized I have to drive back with her. When the guys
Yeah,
dump people, they don't have to drive back with
that's right. Lorna, thank you so much for joining us on Humans Outside today. We sure appreciate you.
them. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Humans Outside. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not give us a little love and leave a rating and review to make it easier for other listeners to find the podcast too? It really does make a difference. Until next time, we'll see you out there.